Ah, Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes. Or maybe better said, the land of 10,000 things to do. What are you into? Biking, hiking, rock climbing, snowshoeing, or maybe even water skiing? No? Huh. How about boating, wining, and dining? Or maybe just sitting on the beach? Not that either, huh? I got it. Downhill skiing, snowboarding, or even cross-country skiing. Still not hit a nerve? I know. Golfing, jet skiing, wakeboarding, or maybe even just go fishing. This is just the tip of the iceberg of the things to do in one of the most beautiful states in the U.S. Well, today we have a treat for you. We're in central Minnesota. To be more exact, we're in the Brainerd Lakes area, and we'll show you a sure thing. Those are pretty hard to come by, so let's check it out. You know, there are few times when you can go out fishing and pretty much be guaranteed a bite. I mean, in fishing, there's so many different variables, it makes golf look easy. You got seasonal changes, daily weather changes, plus you're chasing an animal with a brain that's programmed not to be eaten or caught. The whole time you're pursuing this quarry, you're on a mobile platform, throwing an imitation lure with a stick and a piece of line. Not to mention, the area you're searching is so vast, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. Well, don't get discouraged. It's not that bad.
In fact, there are plenty of great fishing opportunities that are probably right in your backyard. And the nice thing is, this is one of the easiest fishing opportunities you're ever going to get.
Easy does it. That's just the way Dave and I like it. Let me start off and tell you that it's spring in central Minnesota, and where we live, the lakes are covered with ice for a big chunk of the year. So when the water opens up in the spring, we are chomping at the bit to get on the water. And we want a sure thing, a guaranteed bite. Well, nothing's 100%, but it's as close as we can get, and the best part is, it's only a hop, skip, and a jump away from town.
There's one.
You got one?
Yeah.
Right away?
Boy, that took all of what, 20 seconds maybe?
They really smack it good, don't they?
Yeah. Apparently these are what you like to call biters.
Yep. How do you like that? I'll reel up and we'll reset on this run.
Nice rainbow. And up she comes.
That's what we're after.
That's what we're after. Back you go, baby. I like it.
Nearly every state in the U.S. has some type of trout stocking program, and this offers many people angling opportunities on a budget. In many cases, you can easily catch trout from shore, particularly in the spring. In others, a small boat, easily launchable at primitive boat accesses, may be a better option. Strip mines, mine pits, borrow pits, and other relatively small, man-made waters are often top candidates for stocking with trout, particularly if they feature extremely deep water and steep shorelines. Such waters tend to remain cold and oxygen-rich throughout the year, making them ideal trout habitat. Rainbow trout generally predominate in stocking, although other species may be used as well. While trout seldom reproduce in these waters, they don't have to. State fisheries agencies typically pull aerated tanker trucks up to the shore during the cool spring or fall months and discharge large quantities of hatchery-raised fish. The first few days following their introduction, while trout are still becoming accustomed to their new surroundings, the fish tend to remain quite shallow, within easy reach of anglers casting from shore or longline trolling lures near the surface in open water. Remember, hatchery-raised fish haven't seen lures before and often find the first encounter with anglers to be their last. But that's okay. Fisheries agencies often plan on and encourage the harvest of trout from these waters, since the fish aren't going to reproduce anyway. Thus the term put and take. They put them in, you take them out.
that feels like a good one there. I got a good one.
You got one?
Yeah.
Oh. Attaboy.
Boy, that's 3 fish right now in the same general area.
Yep, right on that waypoint.
And,
Would not be surprised if I got one on the way in.
and it may have something to do with it's right off the access road where they unloaded the truck just a few days ago and flushed all the trout into the lake.
Go to where the fish are, Dave.
Yes.
Don't fight it.
Stand down like a little bulldog.
Yeah. They really kind of snake fight, don't they? They swirl and...
It's up near the surface now. What do we got here?
There you go.
Yeah. You know, that one felt bigger, but he wasn't. He's actually... This is another nice little one. One more for Daniel's dinner tonight. Got a little hook untangled there, and we're ready to roll. And while we get that out, let's take a quick look at Minnesota's philosophy when it comes to managing their stock trout fisheries and maximizing the amount of fun people can have by catching these all over the state.
In those Cuyuna mine pit lakes, the stocking started in the 1980s because the mining continued, I think, into the 50s and 60s, and then there's sort of the mining companies abandoned those pits and they started filling up with water in the 60s and 70s, and by the 1980s there was enough water. People were like, oh, we got some new lakes now, so maybe we could throw some trout in there. So that started in the 80s, and there's been pretty much annual stocking in most of those mine pits from starting in the 1980s through today. Yeah, that trout stocking is to provide angling opportunity for, you know, different species that you wouldn't have that opportunity to fish for in this area. So we provide the rainbow trout mainly fishery, and some brook trout and occasionally some brown trout fishing as well in those mine pit lakes. You know, anglers need a trout stamp to fish for trout in Minnesota, so that provides some extra money for the DNR to raise and stock those trout and manage those trout fisheries. So that trout stamp money goes directly towards that trout fishery management. And so a lot of people are coming in the area for that, and then it's expanded to these new mountain bike trails on the tailing pits, or the tailing piles between the pits. And the clear water is a really popular scuba diver. So an area that was, you know, iron mine pits that aren't too attractive has actually turned into a real recreation opportunity between fishing and boating and diving and mountain biking, all using this former landscape from iron mining, sort of way to take advantage of a previous industrial use of the landscape. DNR's got the role of both protecting natural resources, but also providing the opportunities. So between stocking programs to provide fisheries and also the accesses and the public land to access those fisheries is sort of the other role of the DNR. So it's both protecting and enhancing natural resources and providing the opportunity for anglers and everyone else to enjoy the outdoors and take advantage of Minnesota.
All right, Dave, get your game face on.
I'm ready. You know, as much as Daniel likes to eat these trout, there's other things in this pit that like to eat trout too.
Yeah.
In our area of the country, we've got big largemouth bass in here, some nice smallmouth bass, but you know what? We also have really big northern pike, and this would not be an unusual place to catch a 20-pound pike. And guess what they're eating? And you guessed it, trout.
You know, these mine pits in our area have a wealth of opportunity, not only for fishing, but mountain biking trails. This is like a mecca for mountain bikers. They got trails all over the place back here. Scuba diving is another huge thing that a lot of people do. And the funny thing is, a couple years ago, a buddy of mine were out in a mine pit not too far from here, and we were scuba diving. And I saw the biggest largemouth bass I've ever seen. And that wasn't the weird thing about it. The weird thing was it was an albino, pure white. That's no lie. That's when you're looking around, you're like, where's the camera, right?
So, what else do you do with a big hole in the ground besides letting it fill with water and stocking it with fish? Well, back on August 19th, 1957, the Portsmouth Mine near Crosby, Minnesota, just a few miles from where we're fishing, was the launch site for Man-Hi 2, the second of 3 top-secret manned flights in a U.S. Air Force balloon project that preceded the space race between the US and Russia. The goals were to see if a manned, helium-filled balloon could reach the outer edge of the stratosphere and to study the effects of cosmic rays and zero gravity on humans. The fragile balloon was filled at the bottom of the deep mine, where it was protected by the wall-like surroundings from being buffeted by winds. And piloted by Dr. David Simons inside a telephone booth-sized gondola, the balloon rose to a record height of 20 miles above the Earth, with the flight lasting a total of 32 hours. Barely 1 month later, the Russians launched Sputnik, and the space race was on. Even though the Russians were first into space with rocket-propelled manned spacecraft, the earlier balloon flights proved that pressurized suits worked in space, giving the fledgling NASA space program a leg up on their Russian competition. And it all began at the bottom of a big hole in the ground, which is today 400-foot deep Portsmouth Mine Pit Lake, the deepest lake in Minnesota other than Lake Superior.
Well, we know that Minnesota is world famous. I mean, the beginning of the space race started in a little iron mining town. Not to mention, some of the biggest names in history are from Minnesota. People like Judy Garland, Bob Dylan, and Charles Lindbergh were all from small little towns in Minnesota. I guess that proves that great things come in small packages. I'm at a great example of that. This is Louie's Bucket of Bones in Crosby, Minnesota. This little restaurant has some of the best ribs in the state, and you don't have to take my word for it. It was voted on by a panel as some of the best rib chefs in the state. Let's go inside and check it out.
But this is what we're getting them on today, some Rapala hard baits. And the thing I wanted to point out is our depth control is dictated by the size of the bill on the lure. Right now we've got this one. This one obviously would run a little bit deeper than this one or this one. Right now I'm getting them on this ultralight shad, and Dave is getting them on an original Rapala. You know, these two mid-level baits. You know, a little bit later on, these fish may drop down a little bit deeper, and then you'd want to switch to this lure. So it's early in the season, the fish are relatively shallow, the water's cold, so we're using these two lures. Bombs away. This is how simple it is. Nice little cast out. Tighten her up, go like this. Boom. Put it in a rod holder, and away you go. And I'm slowing her down.
Oh, you got a fish, you got a fish.
Up, 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 whoa, yeah! Back her down. Ooh, this is a good one. It's a good one, good one, good one. Whoa, whoa. This could be the champion. Grand champion, Dave. Whoop, there he is. There you go, he turned on. Turned on, Dave. With it always, it brings out the kid in everybody, doesn't it? Who could not like that? If you don't like that, there's something wrong with you.
Just imagine if you had a whole boatload of kids out here trolling like this, they would have a whale of a good time.
You're not kidding, Dave. You know, catching fish after fish after fish like this, it'll bring out the kid in everybody. Look at those little guys.
Some things just make everyone smile, no matter how old you are. Stuff like a real good piece of apple pie, or watching a float drop with a fish on. These simple little triggers bring out the child in all of us. And if there's one thing I think this world needs nowadays, is a little smile to let everyone know you're gonna be all right. Today we visited a little mining town, got a history lesson, learned about a good fishing bite, and most of all, just enjoyed the outdoors. Minnesota is covered with outdoor opportunities. All you gotta do is check out the local Chamber of Commerce, and they will get you pointed in the right direction for some guaranteed good times.